Alright, welcome to a new chapter, chapter 8, 8.1. Fascinating chapter about conics sections. And one of the interesting things is that we will revisit the parabola again in a different way. So 8.1 has to do with the midpoint and distance formulas. We're going to use the distance formula a bit in this chapter. We're going to learn also about what are called focus points. And those of you who wear glasses probably know a little bit about this chapter already because you have focus points. You're going to learn a little bit about your world that you live in. Quite amusing. It's good stuff. We're going to learn about parabolas again. Ellipses, hyperbolas, circles. Cool stuff. What? Oh. So we have to start off though by understanding the midpoint distance formula. So again, a large portion of this chapter should be review, because I know you had this in geometry. Okay, we don't have time to talk. Okay, please, if you're going to talk to your friends, go out in the hallway. Noel, convince me that your seat is going to work. Okay, well, if it's not going to work, I have to move you back. So the distance formula, you've had this before. All you do is you have a couple points. You got to plug in the numbers where they go, square some numbers, and take the square root. So this should all be old hat by now. Turn this off so you can see it better. Once again, as we go through this chapter, I'll write down some formulas up on the board so that way you don't have to memorize everything. But to be honest with you, you should have that one memorized by now. So we're going to find the distance between these 2 points here. Some of you guys have trouble plugging into the formula, so I would recommend I always write down the formula to begin with. So the distance between 2 points like A and B, it's equal to the square root of x2 minus x1. So we've got some subtraction to do. And then we need to square that. Plus y2 minus y1. And then we need to square that. And so basically you just need to identify which point is which. This one we could say is x1, y1, because it's the first point that's listed here. If you want to call it the second point, that's fine, but anyhow, the x coordinate goes first, so this is x2, comma, y2. And you just put these numbers into here. So using my cool pink color, I'm going to take this number and subtract that number. And let's see, what do we get? We get 4 minus 3, and then we need to square that, and then we need to subtract the y coordinates, these two. So minus 1 minus 5, and then we need to square that, and then we need to take the square root of all that and see what we get. Well, so this looks like to me a minus minus gives me actually a plus, so that becomes a plus, and 4 plus 3 is actually 7, so then when you square 7 you get 49, and then minus 1 minus 5 is actually minus 6, okay, but when you square minus 6 you get 36. And when you add 49 plus 36, what do we get? We get 80, what? 85. So we're just talking about the square root of 85. Now distances are always positive, so you don't need a plus or minus here. It's always just going to be a positive type, or the principal square root. So we dealt with square roots in the last chapter a little bit, so we're doing it again. So it looks like to me it's answer C here. Any questions about the distance formula? Again, it should be review, but this is basically what we call a plug and chug type problem. You just plug the numbers in and see what you get. Okay, so let's continue. So you're going to get some problems where they're asking you to classify a triangle. Well, they're asking you to classify it by using the distance formula, because it might be isosceles. You know, it may be that this side is equal to this one. So there's three things. You're either going to call it scaling, and in that case, none of the sides are congruent. Isosceles, where you have two sides are congruent, you know. Or you have equilateral. And in that case, three sides are congruent. And so basically what you do, and it takes a while to do these, is you have to find the distance between A and C. You need to find the distance between A and B, and find the distance between B and C, and then compare them. And so I think I have the work on here. So let me see if I could save some work. Oh, no, back up. Guess not. So let's go ahead, and what we do is we just go through the calculations. So I might start off with AC and just go ahead and do the calculations. And then I'm going to find out what AB is. And then I'm going to find out CB. And please, the tendency is for students to be lazy, and they just almost flat out refuse to do all the work that's required. And they say, screw that. That takes 10 minutes. Well, this is the stuff you have to do in this section. And you're only going to have a few of these, maybe one or two on the assignment. So anyhow, you just do it. Okay, so you have to subtract the x coordinates. So let's just go this way. And so I'm going to do 4 minus 2, and I'm going to square that. Okay? And then I'm going to add that to subtract the y coordinates. Okay, I've got to subtract the y coordinates, so I get 6 minus 1. And then we square that. Okay? And so this gives us a square root here. Let's see. This is going to be 2 here, and then you square it. So it's going to be 4. And 6 minus 1 is actually 5, and then you square that. So that's 25. So this whole first one is equal to the square root of 29. Alright, and our whole goal here is to determine if we have an isosceles or a scaling or whatever kind of triangle. So now we just go through the process again, and we go through, and I want to find out what AB is. What is that length? So I do it again. And hopefully you get to the place where you can actually do these within a couple of minutes. I mean, it shouldn't take that long, really. But this time I need to subtract the x coordinates again, so I'm going to go this way this time. How about 4 minus 7? And then I square this one. And then I add that to subtract the y coordinates. Okay, this isn't really that hard, is it? I hope. 6 minus 3, then we square that. And so that gives us the square root. Well, 4 minus 7 is actually negative 3, and then when you square that, you get 9. Okay, and 6 minus 3 again is 3, and when you square that, you get 9 again. So this one gives us square root of 18. And obviously, these two are not the same. They're not the same. So it looks like we might have a scaling triangle so far, right? Well, before we conclude that, let's figure out what the length BC is. BC. Now I think I'll use a cool blue color. That one's equal to the square root, and once again you got to subtract the x coordinates. So just let's go this way, subtract those x coordinates. 7 minus 2, and we square that, plus the other one, 3, the y coordinates. Okay, so we subtract the y coordinates, so we get 3 minus 1, and we square that. Well, this here, 7 minus 2, of course, is 5, and you square that, you get 25. And 3 minus 2, or excuse me, 3 minus 1 is 2, and square that, you get 4. So lo and behold, that's equal to the square root of 29. Well, at this point, I recognize those two are the same. So it turns out that this whole thing is an isosceles triangle. Bam. So please be prepared to do the distance formula 3 times on these sorts of problems. And you don't want to just say, oh dude, I knew that already from looking at it. Okay? That doesn't cut it on this one. You have to prove it by doing the distance formula. So, and what?
There's no shortcuts to this type of thing?
No. Not on this. When they ask you to classify the triangle, that's what they want you to do. So I'm just showing you what the expectation is. And if you have one of these on Chapter 8 test, that will be the expectation also. So the thing is that we only put one of these because the whole problem takes about 5 minutes. I mean, because you got to do the distance formula 3 times. Okay? So no shortcuts, please. Just do it. Okay, well, let's move on to the other formula we're going to cover is the midpoint formula. And you've had it, you know, I'll write it up on the board, but you had this in geometry. And this time you find the average x distance and you find the average y distance between 2 points. And keep in mind that your final answer are going to be coordinates, so that should have parentheses and a comma in between. So let's try an example. Oh, well, I got to get the problem here. Hang on. There we go. So where's the midpoint? Okay, between these 2 points. So again, it's not a bad idea to identify this one's x1, this is y1, this is x2, this is y2. Especially if you're not that good with these formulas. But anyhow, to find the midpoint, I always just recommend writing down the formula first until you have it memorized. X1, this time we add the x coordinates. We divide by 2, and we put a little comma. Y1 plus y2, and we divide by 2. Okay, so now let's just plug the numbers in. This time I need to add the x coordinates. So I get, let's see here, I get minus 5 plus minus 1. And I divide that whole thing by 2. Put a comma here. And now let's add the y coordinates. 1 plus 6. Divide by 2. And now my first step is done. I just put the numbers in wherever they go, and it's the second step that I try to simplify things, and I recognize here that I'm adding 2 negative numbers. So this gives me negative 6 actually over 2, and this actually gives me 7 over 2. And then I recognize, well, hey, this one actually simplifies further. That's simply equal to negative 3. And this, 7 halves. And so there's my midpoint right there. This is my midpoint. The good news is that you don't need graph paper to do this assignment. You don't have to put the points on graph paper. You can just simply use this formula right up here. Some people like to put this in terms of decimal. Okay, well, whoop-de-doo. If you want to do that, that's fine also. 2/7 is the same thing as 3.5. So if you want to write your answer like this, that's fine also. Okay? So basically you're going to be doing a bunch of distance problems and a few midpoint problems on this assignment. And it kind of lays the foundation for you for 8.1. So you guys have a whole 30 minutes or so to get going on this assignment. 8.1 is real easy. Also, if you want to use this time right now to do this extra practice, you're welcome to do that. So some of you guys have seen your test score and you go, hey, I got to get started on that. This is a nice way to redeem your score. Even if you did really horrendous, you can come up to a C minus. And it's my goal that everyone will get an A, B, or C in my class, but you have to do the work. So here's your opportunity. If you didn't do so hot on the test, you can do this assignment and raise your grade up to a C on that test. It's in the back of the book. There's no particular page number. It's in the blue pages. I could show you in my book where it's at.
Did you give me your book?
No, I'm not giving you my book. It's in the back right here. And see, by blue pages, I mean there's blue at the top. And it'll say extra practice. And so you just find chapter 1, and you're going to do problems 2 through 52 even. And that just means there's about 25, 26 problems to do.
What page?
Which page? Honestly, it says, here's what it says, EP2. It doesn't have a whole number. All I can say is that it's in the back of the book. So make sure you do that, and it has to be done correctly, or else I keep returning it to you until it's done correctly. So anyhow, you have a free half hour to work either on the assignment 8.1 or this extra practice assignment. Be ready tomorrow. We're going to start 8.2.